Okay, hello everyone. I'm so very excited to be here today. I hope you had an opportunity over the week to practice writing your lowercase letters. This was sort of not really a homework assignment, but this sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, has all the letters in the alphabet. So I'm holding this up here so you can get a little reminder of what we did last week. I believe the video from last week is also on the Loudoun County Library website, linked to YouTube. So hopefully, if you didn't get an opportunity, you can practice this sentence. I would like to thank the Loudoun County Library System so very much for having the opportunity for me to be able to teach you and for you to be able to learn live. It's such a great way to take instruction in the comfort of your own home and the privacy of your own home, and you get to still learn from an experienced instructor. Before we get started on learning the uppercase letters, if you ever should have a question or you want to contact me in some ways, this is my email, ropewalker12@gmail.com. And one last thing that I'm kind of excited to show you is if you were with me last week, you might have remembered I said I have a really interesting show and tell. And so this is a quail feather. And this feather was carved at the end. I don't know if you can see the tip of it, into a pen. And this is what the signers of the Declaration of Independence signed their names to. They used something just like this. They had ink that they made. And so this is actually a pen. When I was teaching, one of my parent volunteers made this for me. So as you're writing, think about how interesting it would be to actually write with a real feather. So I just thought that was really interesting. I have written with this. It's very interesting. So I'm going to assume that you are ready to get started. I'm going to be using a Sharpie to do my writing. You can use a pen or a marker or a pencil, whatever you have that makes you comfortable. And I am going to encourage you to have several pieces of lined paper ready to go. Now, last week we learned the lowercase letters in a particular order by the way they are shaped. Today, with the uppercase letters or the capital letters, we're just going to go and learn them in alphabetical order. So I'm going to ask you to watch me draw the letter first and then draw the letters yourself maybe 3 or 4 times until you start to get the hang of it. And then once this video is posted, then you can watch it again and again, and eventually you'll be writing your name and letters, and it's gonna be great. Okay, so here we go. The first letter I'm going to do is the letter A. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to go down, around. I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to make a little tail. So it's pretty much the same as a lowercase a, except it's smaller and there's no front tail. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to go down, around, up, and make a little tail. Whenever you're learning something new, you have to watch somebody do it first, and then it takes a lot of practice. So go ahead and draw several A's on your paper until you're comfortable with forming the, excuse me, if you're comfortable forming the A, then you'll just notice the difference between an uppercase A and a lowercase a. So it's a little bit different. So let's move on. And now we're going to do the uppercase B. Make a little tail, go down and around, and make sort of like a little hook right there. So that was a lot. So let's try that again. You go up, you go down, you retrace it, you make one loop, you make another loop, and then there's kind of a little fancy part at the end. So make a couple B's. And I think I remember saying this last week, cursive writing tends to slant a little bit on a diagonal to the right a little bit. So try that. So let's make an uppercase B and a lowercase b, so you can see how they're a little bit different. So that's the uppercase and the lowercase. So let's try the letter C, which is really easy. Some of the letters look very similar to the lowercase versions, except they're taller when you're writing. So here's an uppercase C, and there's a lowercase c. Uppercase, lowercase. So just practice, and you're going to be so good at it. It just takes a little bit of practice. And what's really exciting is once you start getting good at it, then you can start writing your name and letters to people. You can write your state. When you create, say you're writing a bill or you're writing a check, you can use cursive as a real practical way of writing. Okay, so now we're going to do the letter D, which has lots of curves. So I'm going to start at the top here. I'm going to go down, make a little tail, come up, and make a curve. So I'm going to do that a lot slower. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to make a little curve, I'm going to go up, and then make a tail at the top. Go down, cross it, go around, and make the tail at the top. And you have an uppercase D. How fun. And then a lowercase d looks like this. See? You're doing great. We've already have 4 down. Excellent. Speaking of excellent, let's do an E. It's just a curve and then a loop in the middle and then a tail. A loop in the middle and then a tail. And definitely write a whole line of these. The more you do something, the better you are. And here's one final uppercase E, and then here's a lowercase e. I think cursive writing is so beautiful. To me, it's like an art form, really. So now we have A, B, C, D, and E. I hope you're following along. Now we're going to do the F. Now the F is one of those letters where you're going to be lifting your pen. So you're going to make the top of the F. Then you're going to go down like this and make like an anchor. And then you make a curl in the middle. So there's like 3 steps in making the F. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to show you really slowly. So you make a little loop. And you'll notice it's not straight. It's like a curve right here, see? Then in the middle, you go down and over, and you make like an anchor shape, and then you stop. And then you have this part in the middle. So that's an uppercase F. This one takes a little bit of practice, so give yourself some time. And don't worry if you don't get it on the first try. Just keep at it. Now let's see how it looks compared to the lowercase f. So it's very different. And that's a whole nother ball of wax, is trying to read the words that are in cursive. But you'll get the hang of it. I know you will. So let's move on and do the G. The G starts at the bottom. We make a little curve, and then we go down. So we make a little curve here. We come up, we go over, and that's the G. Now, here I went all the way over. Here I went a little bit of the way over. When you get into writing cursive, you'll start to develop your own style. Make a curve, go up, go down. And then a lowercase g, just so you can compare. You can do this. I know you can. Look how beautiful this page is. It's almost a work of art. In fact, I have a friend of mine who's still teaching art in Loudoun County, and she bases a lot of her paintings on using letters of the alphabet in abstract ways and then filling them in with color. Okay, so the H. The H has 2 parts. It has a loop like this, and then you give yourself a little space and you go down, you make a little curve, and you come up. So some of the letters you have to pick up your pen. So let's try that again a lot slower. You make a loop, you go down. It's kind of like a candy cane shape. You leave a little space, you go down, you retrace it, you make a little loop, and then you have the little tail in the middle. Make that little candy cane shape. Look how beautiful these letters are. To me, cursive writing is an art form. By the way, I wanted to show you one of these while you're practicing. This is actually a calligraphy pen, and they all come in different tips. So you can get yourself like a fountain pen like this. The ink goes down here, and then you can write with one of these. And that's like using real ink. Save that for another day. So I have a row of H's, and let's make a lowercase h. Make a loop, come around. Beautiful. So the I starts with like a little hook like this. On the F, there's like this little anchor shape. So it's over, make the anchor shape, come up into a loop, and that's your uppercase I. Don't make them too wide. And then here's a lowercase I for comparison. So now we have the uppercase I and the lowercase I. Great job. Now the J is very similar to the J in the lowercase. So you come up, you make a loop, you come down. So you have a large loop, and then you have a smaller loop. A larger loop, smaller loop, and then up. Larger loop, smaller loop, and give yourself a tail. Now I'm drawing these letters slow so you can follow along, but when you're actually writing a letter or a check or a bill, you'll probably be writing these letters much faster once you get the hang of it. It's also good to learn how to write cursive just for knowing how to sign your name. So there's my row of J's, and then a lowercase j looks like this. So there you have a row of A's, a row of B's, C's, D's, E's, F's, G's, H, I, and J. So are you all caught up? Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way. And now I'm going to get some more paper, and we're going to do the rest of the alphabet. Okay, so J, now we're on K. K is one of those letters that has where you pick up your pen, so you have two parts. So you make a little loop or a curl like that candy cane shape, and then you skip a little space, and you make a curve like around that candy cane, and then come up, and you give it a little tail. Isn't that beautiful? I just love these Ks. Make a little curl like you're wrapping a string around the candy cane, and then go down and make your tail. So those are Ks. It's a little similar to an H, so be careful that you're really wrapping that candy cane in the middle. And then we'll compare it with the lowercase k. Okay? All right, let's do the letter L. Every time I draw an L, I think of that show from the 80s, Laverne and Shirley, because she had a beautiful pink L sewn on her shirt. Anyhow, make a loop, come down, and come back up. Isn't that beautiful? Let's try that again slower. Make a loop, go down, make a loop the other way, and come back up. Just have to know which direction to hold your pen. I'll do one more. And then to make a lowercase l, there it is. See? You're doing great. We're like halfway done already. Awesome. All right. Now let's do the letter M. Make like a candy cane shape, and then we're going to make 2 bumps. Candy cane shape, come up, bump 1, bump 2, and give it a little tail. When you make an M, give yourself a little bit more room because you have these 2 bumps. So you make that candy cane shape, come up, you have like 2 mountain shapes. And you're just drawing the letter M. And then the comparison is the 3 bumps. So that's the lowercase m. And then the N is very similar. It's just 1 bump instead of 2. Now you can get really creative with these curls or not so much. Because once you start writing, you'll have your own style. That's just the way everybody has their own way of handwriting. And this is just the way I'm doing it in a very basic way. But you'll figure out where you want to put all your curls and make it beautiful. And the lowercase n is just 2 bumps. So the O starts at the top. Make the O, make a little curl, and come up like that. And every time I draw an O, I think of the Baltimore Orioles. Maybe you have a favorite baseball team. O. It's like a circle and a little curl. And then the lowercase o, very similar. And the P is pretty much the same. Uppercase and lowercase, it's just, it takes 2 spaces, it's taller. And then the lowercase p has that descender part, that tail that goes down that we talked about. So I'll show you. So here's the P. There's a P. Now, if you want, you could make it a curl. So you see, it's a little different. So it depends on how fancy you want to get. So here's one that's not quite so fancy. And here's one that's pretty fancy. And then here is just the lowercase. So those are P's. Now, the letter Q looks a lot like the number 2. So don't get confused if you're writing, say, your address. But that's the way a Q looks. A Q has a long curve like that. It really looks like the number 2. It starts with a curve, you come around, you make that little crossover. Now, don't get it confused with the L. It's kind of similar, so be careful. You make that long tail, you make a little curl, and you come up. Looks a lot like the number 2, right? Yeah. I find that if you are learning something new and you can relate it to something else that you already know, it makes it easier for you to remember it. So there's an uppercase Q, and then here's a lowercase q. So those are Q's. And here's an R. You go down. So you can go down, you make that part, the round part at the top, and then you come down and you make this little tail. Now, if you want, you could make, instead of this straight, if you want it fancier, make the curl. It's your choice. Try both and see which one feels better for you. So there's an uppercase R. And then here it is again. And then here's a lowercase r. Now, when you do the lowercase r, remember this little top part, that's a little tiny diagonal there, so be careful. But you've already practiced that from last week, right? I know you have. Exactly. So I'm going to do the S's on the bottom. So the S's kind of looks like the musical staff sign. It's a small curve and then a bigger curve. So you start at the bottom, you cross over it, you go over. Let's try that again. That's a lot to remember. You come over, you slant it to the right, you make a big tummy, and then you go over and make a little tail. Oops, my paper moved. And then you have a series of S's. And then let's compare it with a lowercase s. So we have a row of K's, a row of L's, M's, N's, O, P, Q, R, and S. So we're coming to the finish line pretty soon. So I'm going to get some more paper But even when we finish learning the alphabet, I'm going to show you something fun to practice. So we'll all practice everything together one more time. Okay, so we have the letter S, and now we're going to do the T. The T is very similar to the F, so be careful. So watch how I do it. I make this little curvy part, then I come down, and I make that anchor, and then I stop. And the only difference between the T and the F is this little mark in the middle. So be careful. Make your curve at the top, come down, and make the anchor. You can do this. Excellent job. See that? We have T's. Let's make a lowercase t. Well, let's like one more. And then here is the T, the lowercase t. So now you have T's. And then here's a U. We're going to start with that candy cane shape. We're going to go around. We're going to come up. And we're going to go down. Go around, come up, retrace it, and make your tail. See that? Great. I knew you could do it. I'll get one more. Today I'm being a little fancy with my curls. And then the lowercase u, just like that. So it's a good practice. And then the V is just a curve. You go down, and then you hook it this way. You hook it to the left. Come down, come up, and then hook it to the left. So we have a whole row of V's. All right, very good. All right, let's make the V. So now you have a lowercase v next to it. And then the W is basically two V's put together. See? It does look like two V's, doesn't it? And then let's make a lowercase v, a W for comparison. Great. We're getting closer, only 3 more to go, and then we're going to do a practice page before we end the whole thing. We're going to make a curl, we're going to go down. You notice on it's on a diagonal, and then we're going to cross it. And then lowercase x is basically the same, it's just a little shorter. And then the y, you make a curve, you come up, then you make that little tail. And the y is pretty much the same in uppercase and lowercase, it's just taller. Come up, go down, cross over. And then here's a lowercase y. And then last is a z. It's very similar to a Q, isn't it? Except you have a little tail here. Go around again, and then come up. This one takes a little practice. Like I said, when you're learning something new, give yourself time. And then the lowercase is pretty much the same. It's just smaller. So there you have it, the entire alphabet from A to Z in cursive writing. Now, before we go, we're going to get one more chance to practice everything. So watch what I do, and you can follow along with me and save all your work so you can refer to it. And we're going to make all the letters again, uppercase, and then lowercase next to it. And then you'll have a really great comparison. And that way you'll be able to practice over and over again, learning and getting better and better every time you do it. So here we go. Here's A, A. B, B. C, C. D, and D. And here's E. And here's E. And here's F. And there's the lowercase f. And then here's G. Remember that one? So as you're drawing these letters, you'll notice that a lot of them have similar parts. And that's really helpful when you're practicing. So here's the letter I. And there's J. And there's K. And here's L. Watch where you make your loops, because if you make a loop on the wrong side, it could actually be a different letter. So be careful where you put all your loops and your curls. Here's an M. And then here's N. O starts at the top. And then for the lowercase o, just a little version. There's P. And then here's that Q. So you'll be very careful where you put your curves and your tails so you don't get P's and Q's and G's mixed up. R. S. Lowercase s. T. And then you cross it in the middle, just like we did last week. U. And there's V. And there's V. Hopefully you can still hear me where I'm at. There's a lot of thunder going on. So we have the uppercase W and the lowercase w. X. It's one of those ones you have to pick up your pen. Y. And Z. So now you have a really good understanding of how to draw all of your letters. And I wanted to show you this page. So at the top of this page, I drew all the letters in uppercase. And then down here, I did uppercase and lowercase. I'm going to put that up so you can take a few minutes to look at it. And this is another good thing you can do to practice. And the other thing that you can do to practice is you can write this sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So I hope you enjoyed learning the cursive letters, and I would like to thank Lorraine Maffa for being our host today in the Loudoun County Public Library. Before we go, just want to tell you that I believe it's, the 28th. I'm going to be leading an acrylic painting class. So this is my Vincent van Gogh pumpkin patch. So if you'd like to learn how to paint this, I'm going to show you step by step. Tune in on the 28th.